Over here is the game management menu. It's basically our menu, save, load, that sort of thing. Right here is our ledger, and we have a bunch of different options. It's the character screen. This just shows people in our court. More useful than the screen on the character menu. Our dynasty, which is basically the same thing, only it just shows the people in our dynasty, and it'll actually show people in a dynasty outside of our kingdom. The rulers in the realm, which is basically me and my vassals, and also the vassals of my vassals will be here. This is just the vassals we control directly. This is the potential brides. This is probably the most useful thing in the ledger because it's very important to pick out brides for your male heirs, so that they get a good chance of having good children later in the game. More on that when we start actually marrying people off, though. This is our domain. We only control one province right now. It's kind of cool to see like a little summary of all of your provinces, and it shows the effects here, so you can track which things have which. This is the building screen, not that useful. This is the manpower. That's kind of a summary of what we can spawn for our army, and it kind of shows the breakdowns of our different things. This is our army that we actually have deployed, which we have none deployed. This is the possible inheritances. Right now, Alan Fergant, who is our son, has all of the possible inheritances. He's first in line to both us and his father's court, which is the Count of Corlieu, whatever it is. He's also 6th and 7th in line to a bunch of different stuff. So, yeah. It's unlikely that that's going to come up, but it could. Next is our titles. These are the titles we currently hold. Not really any kind of, these are the claims we have. We have claims on 2 provinces controlled by England right now. Specifically the Duchy of Normandy and the County of Avranches, which are Avranches, whatever, who are vassals of the King of England. The age of the claim here, claims are not permanent, with the exception of claims within your own kingdom, I believe. You can pretty much have those forever. This is the relations screen. This basically shows our standing with other countries. This will go up and down based on what we do, how we interact with the kingdoms. The Catholics will pretty much go up until it's about 100 or 150. Our vassals will keep going up to about 150, usually, sometimes to 200, depending on our kind of relation with them. The papal state kind of, depends on what we do and how we interact with the Pope through events. The Muslims will go down to roughly minus 100, but I've seen it at 0. Pagans will go down to about 0. The Orthodox will go down to about 0, and yeah. And the next is history, and this kind of shows all the events that have popped up in the game. And as you can see, there's a bunch of people getting titles. Alright, so that's about it for this section, explaining the interface and stuff, at least to the extent I want to go into it now. Oh, actually, there's another thing. If we click on a province, and if we click on our province, we can bring up this context menu here. And this kind of shows what we can do in the provinces. Like right here, because we have a claim on the Duke of Normandy, we can declare war on him. And this kind of shows what claims we have and the comparison of the army they can raise and the army we can raise. They will beat us soundly, so we don't want to do that back. We could send an assassin, and that's what intrigue is based on. Our stat intrigue here. We have pretty good intrigue, but we don't have enough money to do it, and there are huge penalties for doing it and failing. If you fail, you get 100 points off of your prestige and piety, even if you're doing it to a religious enemy, because that's dishonorable. You can offer alliance. We are already allied with his master, so we don't need to worry about that. Offer marriage. There are either no eligible people in our court or in his court. There aren't any eligible people in our court. So that's something we can't do. We can't pledge allegiance to him because he's a duke and we're a duke. We could pledge allegiance to England, but we're not going to do that. We could send him a gift, give him some money. We're not going to do that. That's good for raising relations. More on that when we start talking about relations. We could send a fosterling. There aren't any children in our court, so we can't do that. We could grab his title. We don't have enough prestige to do it because Duke of Normandy is really powerful. So yeah. We could also try to usurp his title if we have, if we control enough provinces for the title he holds. We can kind of take that title away from him if we declare war on him and take it through warfare. I have had this happen fairly frequently, where the title kind of goes away from the provinces it's attached to, and I've had like the Duke of Mesopotamia being up in Finland. Pretty weird. So yeah, in our own menu, we can bring up the same kind of menu, except that we can't declare war on ourselves. We can mobilize hosts in the Grand Mobilization, which is basically organizing all of our armies. If I click this, it will mobilize everybody in our domain. Click OK. It's basically just like clicking on the province. We could do a Grand Mobilization, which is all of our vassals' provinces as well. We can do the same kind of things. We can actually send assassin to assassinate people within our court. But down here, we can our title creations options and grant titles. We can grant titles to other people to give them provinces that we either don't want to control or want to get rid of bad reputation by giving provinces away. Or provinces that we can't control because of our low intrigue. Below that is creating a bishopric. Little kind of ecclesiastical. It basically makes it so that the province is controlled by the bishops, and it goes into elective law. But you can't lose a bishopric through succession. And if the bishop happens to become pope, you get the land back, which is cool. We can create titles. So right now we can actually create the Duchess of the Breton March and the Queen of Brittany. We can't do that right now because we don't have enough money, but these are actually two titles we actually can create. We actually have all 6 of the provinces in the Queen of Brittany and all 2. Both of the provinces we can, so we can create this, but we need 100 gold and 250 gold, respectively, to create all these. We may wait for our heir to create either of these because they cost a lot of money and they're not going to actually give us any kind of mechanical bonus at this point, since we only have 1 province and we really aren't going to be expanding early in the game. Also in the context menu is our court screen. We click this and we can see our different advisors. Now right now we don't have a marshal or a diocese bishop. Now one of the things we can do is we can switch different people for this. As you can see, this guy, if you look at here, these are the education traits. Now to be a bishop, you must be a male that has an ecclesiastical education, which is these blue things that kind of have the pope hat, and sometimes a book, and sometimes like a mitre or a stick. The mitre is the hat. What the hell am I talking about? A cross. The priestly things. And this guy is a scholarly theologian, which is really good. So we could make him a bishop, but right now he's appointed as our chancellor because of his high diplomacy skill. Now the diplomacy stat is important for people who have vassals because it increases their loyalty to you based on the diplomacy of the character. Also, it makes it easier to get peace treaties and relations boosts with other people, and also forging alliances is based on diplomacy. It's really not based on your personal stat. As you can see here, we have this stat here, but without the parentheses, which is our personal stat, and then the one in parentheses is our stat plus our advisor's stat. So I don't know if the personal stat for diplomacy does anything. So anyway, let's try to get him to not be our chancellor. Let's see if we got anybody else who's better. We don't have anybody who's better. But we have this person who is pretty good. Only a little bit less. And then we can appoint him as our bishop. Okay. Now next under that is the steward, who obviously grants us a bonus to stewardship. Stewardship's probably the most important stat in the game because it indicates how much money you can get out of your provinces. There's a certain bonus you get from the province based on your stewardship. What it also does is it determines how much manpower you can scrounge together. Basically, how much money you can pay to the soldiers, I guess. And having more manpower is always better. So, stewardship is very important. And as far as I know, it just uses your modified stat, which is that. Next under that is the Marshal, who we don't have a Marshal appointed. Let's see if we can. We got one right here. He really sucks, but actually, ooh. I would have been a better intrigue person, but he's the only Marshal we have, so that's okay. Intrigue is an interesting stat because it means that you can, your personal stat here basically determines how many provinces you can control. And it's based on your rank modifier. We are a duke, so it's ×1. And you can control half of your intrigue worth of provinces rounded down. So we can control 5 provinces right now with this intrigue. The modified intrigue stat is basically used for events and how good you are at assassinating people using this send assassin thing. I believe that's the only other use for it. It does influence events just like all the other stats. So yeah, as far as I know, the modified one is the one used for that. The Marshal also obviously increases your Marshal stat, and the modified Marshal stat is used for how fast you recruit troops, and your personal stat, which actually doesn't apply to us, is for leading troops. Is for personally leading troops. Now our leader has a Marshal 5, but it doesn't matter because female characters can't lead troops. But male characters can, and even our steward could lead troops. If you were looking earlier when I, spawned my guys, this guy was actually the one leading them. And it will pretty much pick out all of your courtiers that are males, and then it'll start doing anonymous commanders who have no Marshal stat at all. So until we get a male leader, that's pretty much irrelevant. So what we're going to be wanting to do now, before we actually start the game, is just to take a stock of our neighbors. We got the King of England here, who is our ally. We got the various dukes and counts of Ireland, the dukes and counts of Wales, the King of Scotland and his associated people. We have France, who is our largest neighbor, but less powerful than England. They have a tendency to collapse, but we'll see that when it happens. We got Spain down here, which is just a big cluster of kingdoms and Muslim kingdoms, and it's kind of a melee as far as that goes. We got Germany up here. Germany has an even higher tendency to collapse than France since they are huge, but sometimes they don't. Over here we have Scandinavia. We're probably going to have little to do with Scandinavia, but they control some of the English provinces and they can attack Germany and England. I've seen them do it. But we're not going to be worried about that for the most part. We have claims on these 2 provinces. Since they're controlled by our ally, we're not going to do anything with those claims. And since we already control the entire Kingdom of Brittany, as far as, the actual Kingdom of Brittany, we're not actually going to be worried about expanding at the moment.